Chapter 7 of the Dao De Jing. Dao, pronounced Dao as in now, opens with an observation about the sky and the ground. Not a command, not advice, just a question. Why do they last? Heaven is lasting. Earth endures. These are among the oldest facts anyone could point to. What Laozi finds interesting is not the fact but the reason. Shan chang dai jiu. Chen dai xiu yi nain chang kai jiu ji, yi kai bu zai shēng. Gu nain chang shèng. Chi shèng rain hu kai shen air shen zion. Wei kai shen air shen kan. They yi kai wu sai ye. Bu nain sheng kai sai. In English, heaven is lasting. Earth endures. The reason heaven and earth can last and endure is that they do not live for themselves. Because of this, they can live long. Therefore the sage puts himself last, and finds himself ahead. He places himself outside, and finds himself preserved. Is it not because he has no private interests, and so he is able to accomplish his own ends? The passage opens with heaven and earth not as symbols of power, but as examples of duration. The sky doesn't assert itself. The ground doesn't demand recognition. They simply persist, longer than anything we can name. Laozi asks why, and gives an answer that stops you, because they do not live for themselves. They don't generate their own existence, don't hoard, don't accumulate for private gain, and because they don't grasp at their own continuation, they continue. Then comes the pivot to the sage, the person who has understood something and acts from that understanding. The sage puts himself last, and finds himself ahead. This is not a technique for getting ahead. It's an observation about what happens when someone genuinely stops jockeying for position. Think of a teacher who never takes credit for a student's breakthrough. Over time, that teacher becomes the one students remember. The insight actually lands, because no one was performing expertise at them. The teacher who gave credit away ends up more trusted, more sought out, not because they planned it, but because they stopped blocking the flow. He places himself outside and finds himself preserved. To place yourself outside your own continuity, to stop being anxious about whether your name survives, whether your position holds, is to stop making yourself fragile. What we grip tightly we often crush. What we hold loosely often stays. The closing line is the tightest paradox in the chapter. Is it not because he has no private interests, and so he is able to accomplish his own ends? This is not a trick. It isn't saying, perform selflessness, secretly get what you want. That reading collapses into manipulation and misses the point entirely. The structure being described is different. When you stop treating every situation as a resource to extract for yourself, something opens up. The things you actually care about, being trusted, doing work that lasts, contributing something real, become possible precisely because you stop defending your claim to them. Think of two architects. One is always making sure the building is remembered as theirs. The other is absorbed in making the building right. Decades later, the work of the second tends to endure, not because they were strategically humble, but because their attention was on the thing itself rather than on what the thing could do for their reputation. What might someone actually take from this? Not a prescription. This chapter does not say stop being selfish and you'll win. That's the inversion that hollows it out. Turn it into a strategy, and the insight is already gone. What it offers is a pattern worth noticing. Things that grasp at their own survival tend to become brittle. They require constant maintenance of the position, the authority, the claim. Things that don't make that claim often persist without effort. You might notice this in relationships. The most durable ones aren't usually the ones where people are constantly proving their importance to each other. They're the ones where people are simply present. You might notice it in work. Projects that survive tend to be the ones someone cared about getting right, not the ones someone needed to succeed for personal reasons. This chapter doesn't give you something to do. It gives you something to observe, in yourself, in the things around you that last and the things that don't. Heaven doesn't try to last. It lasts. Chapter 8 continues from here.